country, was it, what, 10 years ago?
13.
13. He really struggled with the language, which I can't believe, actually, when he tells me this story. And his range of vocabulary is amazing. And I don't think there goes a time by when a new word kind of finds their way into his vocabulary. And in the blurb for tonight's talk, he used the word ubiquitous. And you know what? I had to look it up just to check out what it really meant. So, you know, Ari Varchin, you know, you've really excelled yourself. I'm amazed at your competence of the language. It's just amazing. And one thing I really like about Ari Varchin is that he laughs at my jokes. And I thought, you know, that I know that means a lot to me, but he has got a sense of humour. But someone who laughs at my joke is really a friend indeed. And I do regard Ari Varchin as a very close friend and a deepening friendship. But I think the quality that, if I ever think of Ari Varchin, the quality I think of most is actually he's just so great at encouraging people. And I know he's given me huge encouragement, particularly when I first committed myself to coming to Nottingham. He just sort of, he gave so much encouragement. It was almost overwhelming at times. And in the spirit of looking up words and what they meant, I thought, oh, I'm just going to see what encouragement means. And that sort of curiosity got the better of me. And it means to give someone confidence or hope. And I thought, wow, that's such a gift, isn't it? You know, to be able to give confidence to people. And I do believe, brother, that, you know, that if I feel that, I'm sure others do too. So, yeah, it's a real privilege to just have the opportunity to rejoice in Ari Varchin's merits, really. It's only some of them. I mean, we're only scratching the surface, really. But anyway, Ari Varchin is going to be delivering a talk on the Stupa as part of our Buddhist symbols series. So welcome, Ari Varchin, and over to you.
Thank you very much, dear Bodhinaya. Yeah, very generous. Yes, so we're in the middle. Well, not in the middle, actually, in the last leg, if you want, of this series on Buddhist symbols, and so it's still 4 more weeks before we end the series. And I want to talk tonight about a symbol that is quite central to the Buddhist tradition. But also, I just want to mention the rest of the series, what is left, because I feel that tonight I'm going to be mentioning some aspects that are going to be covered later on in the other 3 talks that we have for this series. So we have done a lot of exploration, and tonight is not going to be the exception, of visual symbols, and that the Buddhist tradition is very rich in that sense. Nonetheless, tonight with the symbol of the Stupa, but also we are going to be exploring next week mantra as a sound symbol. And then the following week, we're going to be exploring a couple of symbols that are very, very central. In a way, they are quite universal, but they are very central to the Buddhist tradition. One is a tree, and the other is the sky, the blue sky of emptiness. So we're going to have Shantika covering the topic of the tree, and Artabandhu, who is returning to Nottingham, will be delivering that talk on the blue sky of Shunyata. So I really want to encourage you to carry on, you know, to follow these talks and see how you respond to all this imagery that we are presenting to you. So I choose this symbol of the Stupa, first of all, because it's very important to the Buddhist tradition in general, as I say before, but also because it has been very important to me during my involvement with Buddhism and Triratna. So I'm going to show you some pictures, and I'm going to reflect a bit more about that. But to begin with, I just want to say a few things, some preliminaries around the stupa. So one of them, very important, well, what the word stupa means. And stupa basically means top, or even can mean crown. Yeah. And I'm going to explain a bit more how you can find the meaning of that word in the symbolism of the stupa. But also the stupa is a symbol that have evolved. I don't know how many of you connected with the meditation that Sachamega led in the first half of this evening, but Sachamega read a quote from Lama Anagarika Govinda, where he is referring to the beginnings of the stupa, which is the burial mounds, that you find in many different traditions, many different cultures. So that evolved into something much more complex and all-encompassing, if you want. So it's going to be, I don't want to take too much time tonight because I really want to give us time to go into the groups and explore things. So it's going to be very visual, and I'm going to start showing you some images. And then I'm going to be explaining more the symbolism of the stupa through the images. So let me just start by sharing the screen with you. Okay. I hope everybody can see that. I cannot see you, so if somebody can give me a shout, just that you can see that image.
Yeah, all good.
Good, thank you. So I just mentioned this feature of the burial ground that you can find in many different cultures. And in preparing for this talk, I found this. I haven't been to this place, but this is an amazing burial mound that is found in Ireland. Actually, is called New Grange, and it goes back to the Neolithic era, the pre-Iron Age, and it is the largest in Europe, the largest burial mound in Europe. And I really like that rock. You see that rock that has been placed in the sort of the front or the facade of the burial mound, and you can go inside, which is it's quite unusual as well that you can enter this place. But there's something there that we're going to come back to in relation to the stupa. So the stupa, yes, it has evolved from a very primordial or ancient tradition of burying the corpses of heroes or kings in ancient cultures. But it's also related to the cult of the earth goddess or the earth mother. More than a cult, a religion, really. So the idea is that this mound is like a womb or an egg, the egg mound, the womb mound. And the word for womb in the Buddhist tradition, in Sanskrit, which is one of the languages in which the Buddhist tradition has been preserved, is garbha. So the idea is that the earth is in a way gestating this seed that has been planted there. But also there is another it's a sort of a counterpart of this earth religion, the earth mother religion, which is the sky god Yeah. And so that's the other element that comes into play. So we have the earth here, the mound in the ground, and then we have the sky god religion where the corpses are cremated, so they are burned. And the idea is that through fire, the remains ascend to the sky god. So it's said that this is oversimplifying a bit the historical development, but there was a bit of a rivalry, if you want, between these two main religions, especially in India, of the earth goddess, or the earth mother, and the sky god. And one of the main, the first things that Buddhism did was sacralizing both of them, rather than demonizing them, or taking one over the other, yeah, and bringing them, integrating them. So that's one of the first aspects about the stupa. The stupa becomes a symbol of integration, yeah. And we're going to explore that in a moment in more detail. So, yeah, the stupa, one of the origins of the stupa is that when the Buddha was asked by his disciples how they should remember him, he gave them a very simple instruction, and it was saying something like, well, with a stupa, and they asked them more details, and what he said to them was something similar to this image, which is folding his, in the tradition it's called the outer rope, and putting the begging bowl on top. Yeah. So this is an image that comes from Southeast Asia, of novice monks receiving their robes, and that image, we can probably go back. That's very fancy robe and a very fancy begging bowl. But we can imagine in the times of the Buddha a piece of cloth that was probably very wet, and a very rough looking begging bowl, probably just an empty piece of wood, or a piece of wood with a hole in the center. Yeah. But that's the image that the Buddha gave, according to a later tradition, I must say. It doesn't appear in the Mahaparinirvana Sutta, for example, which is one of the main accounts of the Buddha's passing away. So there are many different ways in which this symbol has evolved in Buddhist societies. So one of them, a very famous one, let me show you this one. So this is the great stupa at Sanchi, which is the same idea of the mound, but it's much more ornamented, and yeah, in a way, much more elaborated with different symbols. I must say also that at the beginning, the figure of the Buddha as a person, as a human being, wasn't represented. So initially, the way the Buddha was referred was through symbols, different symbols. And one of them was a stupa. So this is one of them. I'm going to show you something. This is quite ornamented, but there is another one in India as well, which is very close to my heart. This is a stupa. It's the Dhamek Stupa at Sarnath. And when you go to India, if you go on pilgrimage in India, you can find stupas that mark different places where it's believed that the Buddha, major events in the life of the Buddha happened. So this is in Sarnath. And if you're familiar with the story, this is where the Buddha first taught the Dharma to the 5 ascetics. Yeah. I think it was 3 years ago that some of us in Nottingham went on pilgrimage to India, a group of us, Vanessa, Fran, Sarah, Paul, Kemasiri, Chantika. And we went to this place, and the special thing about this place is that for me there was a very strong sense of a connection with the Buddhist tradition when I reached this place. I was actually in tears when I reached this place, and I really felt that something important happened there. You know, something there about that, the space, the atmosphere in the space. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. So that added. That was a big contrast as well with with Bodh Gaya and the Mahabodhi temple, which is quite noisy in comparison. So this is a very peaceful place. But you can see that this structure, which is believed is more ancient than the one that I just showed you, the Sanchi Stupa. It's a bit more basic, it's more rudimentary. So it's like a bell, has the shape of a bell. Another very famous stupa is that of Borobudur in Java, in Indonesia. And this is the biggest stupa in the Buddhist world. And you can see the size of people around the stupa. And this is something very interesting about the stupa that I want to bring up, is that you can see as well there is many small stupas around the top. But also that this is a three-dimensional building, yeah. So you have different floors or levels to it, and you can actually walk in and go around. He said that it takes half a day to cover the whole complex. I haven't been there yet, but it's obviously it's very beautiful and very striking. But something very interesting about the stupa is that the stupa is based, if you can see it more clearly here, the stupa is based on the idea of the mandala. Yeah. So that's another symbol that we have explored in these evenings, the symbolism or the mandala as a way of representing the path. I'm going to move a bit quicker now. So I wanted to show you as well, you know, some stupas that you can find in this country, actually, in England. So this is a pagoda, and pagoda is probably, you know, this is a very traditional building in Japan and China. And this pagoda, this particular pagoda, which is of Chinese origin, is in Kew Gardens in London. When you see pictures, if you haven't been to Japan or China like me, when you see pictures of Japanese or Chinese cities, you usually can spot pagodas or buildings with the structure of a pagoda. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment, but you can see that a structure of levels again. Yeah, it's a bit like an umbrella or a parasol. So this is a peace pagoda in Milton Keynes. It's not that old as the one in Kew Gardens. And this is the interesting thing about this one, and I wanted to tell you a bit about this story, is that as I say at the beginning, the stupa was initially a burial monument. Yeah. So in this pagoda, it's said that there are some relics of the Buddha himself. Yeah. So apparently the Sri Lankan Sangha donated some ashes of the Buddha, and they are enshrined in this pagoda, the Peace Pagoda at Milton Keynes. So if you are ever asked where the Buddha is buried, you can tell them that it's buried in Milton Keynes. So, and I wanted to show you some stupas from Triratna, from different Triratna centers. So this stupa is from a very dear place to my heart. This is the mountains in Spain. This is a stupa at Guhyaloka, where some of us have been ordained. Bodhinaya, my person. And in this stupa, there are some relics that belong to one of Bhante Sangarachita's teachers, Dardo Rinpoche. And we have many different stupas in Triratna Center, that guard relics of Dardo Rinpoche. Yeah, so we were very lucky in that sense that we received some of his ashes, and they are enshrined in these stupas. And something that I really like about this stupa is that it has Dardo Rinpoche's motto in Spanish put around this level here. So you walk around the stupa and you can read the motto in Spanish. Another dear place to me and to other men in the movement is Padmaloka in Norfolk, just outside Norwich. The stupa courtyard in Padmaloka, and I wanted to show you this shot of the stupa adorned with this traditional offering, the white cloth, and the doors of the shrine open. Yeah, and some men going around the stupa, circumambulating the stupa, which is a very traditional as well way of worshiping the stupa in the Buddhist tradition. There's another shot. This is a bit more recent, so the stupa has been clean. It's a bit whiter here. And no worries. I'm going to describe the symbolism of all these, the different elements. Yeah. But I just want for you to have a sense of the variety of forms, of shapes that the stupas can have. Another one. So this is Triratana. It's a retreat center for women, similar to Padmaloka, but this is for women training for ordination. And I really like this mosaic with the colors of the 3 jewels in the background and then the stupa at the center. And then this is another stupa with the ashes, relics of Dardo Rinpoche. So there. And if you can see the motto of one of the phrases in the motto of Dardo Rinpoche, live united. If you don't know about this, I'm not going to say much tonight, but you can find a lot of information in our websites, thebuddhistcenter.com or Free Buddhist Audio, about Dardo Rinpoche. This is a place that was very close to my involvement with Triratna in the UK. So this is the old warehouse of Winghorse Evolution, the headquarters in Cambridge. And I did work in this warehouse for 7.5 years. And this stupa was right at the center of the warehouse. And we used to go around whenever we were working, So you can see many products that were dispatched to the evolution shops in the UK. And when people were picking and moving their trolleys around, they always try to go around the stupa, keeping the stupa to their right side. So we're walking around the stupa clockwise. And we did a lot of rituals around this stupa. So you can see this chamber here. There's 4 chambers at this level in the stupa that represent we're hosting a Buddha. And I'm coming back to this, but as I say, the stupa is like the mandala, but 3-dimensional. And I just noticed this actually a moment ago, entering the shrine. I never quite clicked it, but I imagine you can guess what is this. So this is the very handle in the door of our shrine room here in Nottingham. And you can see a Vajra, which is one of the symbols that we have explored in this series, and a stupa there at the top of the handle. Yeah. And you can see as well the symbolism of the 5. Yeah. There's 5 sort of drops or 5 flames at the top here. And I'm going to mention that in a moment as well, explain that a bit more. Yeah, so let's stop a bit here, and this is going to be a way of going into the groups, setting you up to go into the groups. So the stupa basically represents the integration of all 5 elements. So the stupa is a comprehensive symbol. It's a synthesis of the path and the goal, the method and the insight, if you want. So if you as well, again, if you were tuning with us in the first half of the evening, Sachemega read beautifully a passage, a very short extract of the White Lotus Sutra, or the Lotus Sutra. And in that sutra, the stupa appears right at the middle of the narrative. And according to our teacher, Bhante Sangarachita, he says that the stupa represents the first half of the sutra is the method, is a path, and the second half is a goal, is the attainment, if you want, is describing the attainment. So the stupa in a way represents a central point where all energies converge. So when we think of the stupa, we need to think in those terms. We need to think in terms of the different energy associated to the elements. Yeah? So you can see to this side of the diagram, of the picture, you can see these levels associated with a particular teaching or a particular quality. Yeah? And to the other side, you can see the division in terms of the elements. So the base, this is where I want to focus on the elements, just before we go into the groups. You can look at this. This gives you an idea of how the stupa can be a central point for the Buddhist tradition even. But let's look at this side of the image. So we have the earth element on the base, which is represented usually as a cube, or yeah. So it's 3-dimensional, it's a cube. And the color is yellow and represents earth. Then there's a circle, blue circle, that represents the element water. Then a triangle, a red triangle, that represents the element fire. There's sort of a half moon or a ball, green ball, that represents the element air or wind. And then a drop or a tear that usually represents the element space, and it's white in color. Okay? And you see the correspondence of that with the different levels of the stupa. But the stupa is also a symbol that represents our body, the human body. And that shape is almost like a triangular shape, you know, with a wide base at the bottom and a narrow end at the top. It's a shape that you can recognize when you see a figure sitting in the full lotus position. Yeah. So many Buddhas, when you look at the Buddha, it has a shape of a very wide base with the leg crosses, crossed legs, and the hands together, and then goes up towards the top. There's always a bit of a protuberance at the top of the head of the Buddha. That protuberance is the equivalent of this element, the element space of this figure, this drop here. But each of these elements represents as well a quality in energy, and this is what I want really us to focus tonight. So the earth element is energy that is solid, but it could be also energy that is stagnant, yeah? Energy that doesn't move, that doesn't flow. Yeah? And it could represent a phase in our lives, yeah? Or a tendency in our lives. So energy that is not very creative. Yeah? It's just going through the motions, routinary. Yeah? In a way, you can see that this is an ascending order, you know, of refining energy in this symbolism. So water, there's a bit more fluidity with water. There's movement, but it's a limited amount of movement. Yeah? It's a back and forth tendency. Yeah? It's more like movement between opposites. Yeah? So it might be that we start moving our energies, but it's between reactive and a release tendency. Yeah? Tendency to be reactive or a tendency to release energy. Yeah? That might not be very creative neither. So another teaching that can be associated with the element water is the whirling winds. Yeah? You move between pairs of opposites. And then the fire energy, which is ascending, and it's a lot of vigor in it. Represents also an ascension or a refining of the energy, but is in just one direction. Yeah? It's upwards, which is good, but it's not enough. So an analogy here will be the energy of, for example, activists or people are very involved with idealism. Yeah. So you are trying to reach to a particular way of understanding happiness, for example. And it's good. It's definitely it's a movement from the earth element, but it's a bit narrow. Yeah. So when we reach this point, the wind or air, we are spreading our wings, if you want. So we start, is freer, the movement is freer. But the downside of this level is that our energy can be a bit too spread, yeah? Spread too thin, yeah? In too many things, trying to do many things at the same time. And then this point here is a point of integration. Yeah? So this is space. This is a very interesting element, and this is the element that Artavando is going to be covering at the end of this series. Is another word to refer to this element is akasha. Yeah? Akasha can mean a space, but also sky. Yeah? It's a blue sky. And this element, the quality of this element is that can contain all the other elements. Yeah? So there is not necessarily a relationship of antagonism between the elements. They are completely, fully integrated at this point. Yeah. So another way of looking at this, and this is a topic that fascinates me. I dedicate a lot of time to reflect about this. Is thinking of in terms of the 5 Buddha mandalas. Yeah? So there is a correspondence between each of the Buddhas and each of the elements. So the yellow element is associated, earth, is associated with Ratnasambhava. The blue element, water, is associated with Akshobhya. The red element, fire, is associated with Amitabha. The green element is associated with Amoghasiddhi. And the white element is associated with Vairochana. I'm not going to say much about the specific of these Buddhas. We have covered this recently in a series that we offer on the 5 Buddha mandala. But what I want to say is that there is a relationship of, they become, rather than being opposites, as I said at the beginning, you know, Buddhism has a virtue of integrating the elements. They complement each other. Yeah? So water and fire, Akshobhya and Amitabha, yeah, they complement each other. And earth and wind, complement each other, Ratnasambhava and Amoghasiddhi. And when you look at the 5 Buddha mandala, you can see the Buddhas in the opposite sides of the mandala to the different, you know, it's a bit like a cross or a double vajra, if you want. And you can see them seated in that order. And at the center, you have Vairochana. It's the Dharmadhatu, which is where everything converges. Yeah. So something else here is as I was looking for a very good drawing. I don't know if some of you have seen it, of a loka, and I couldn't find it actually, but it's a drawing of a meditator with these 5 symbols in the central channel of the body. And you can see in some stupas, you can see a pair of eyes, yeah, where roughly where the human eyes will be. Yeah? So if this is the top of the head, it will be around this area. And you can see that in Nepalese stupas, you know, they can see a pair of eyes looking at you. So that's a reminder of something that is is going back to our experience. And that's how I want to finish this talk tonight. The stupa is a symbol that helps us to integrate our energies and to refine them, to bring together what seem to be opposites. Yeah? So the stupa is not just an integration of these 5 elements, but it's also an integration of everything that seems to be contrary in our experience. Yeah? So the things that are the mandala and the vajra, if you want, yeah, or the lotus and the vajra, the things that seem to be within time and beyond time. Yeah. So that's a bit of some ideas around the stupa that I wanted to present to you tonight. I hope you have enjoyed this. For me, it's still an exploration. It's something that I very is very alive in my practice, and I really wanted to share some of this exploration with you tonight. So I think that's enough for us to go on in the groups now.
Oh, well, thanks for overarching, and thanks for choosing those images. It was, I do like to see images, and I was just thinking in our groups, maybe we could respond intuitively to those images, which I know is something you've encouraged us to do previously. And, we don't have to intellectualize these things. We can just respond. And I think you've given us quite a lot of areas that we can respond to. So thanks for that. Yeah.